Hey there, it's Emily. If you don't know me, I write clean young adult fantasy books, and if you're interested in those, they are in the description down below. But I also like to read good, clean fantasy books and TV shows and movies, and then I like to tell you about them so you can decide if you want to spend your money or waste your time on them. I recently watched the first episode of a show on Netflix called Cursed. It actually came out in 2020, so at this point, 5 years ago, which surprised me because I had literally never heard of it before. I kind of just stumbled across it. A lot of us had a lot of extra time back in 2020, so I'm just really surprised that I didn't see it, didn't notice it, didn't get served to me as something to watch, especially since the title and the trailer and all of that looked awesome and right up my alley. It's portrayed as this beautiful, intricate fantasy world. The cinematography looks really beautiful. It looks fast-paced and romantic, and there's a whole season to binge, so yay! I really started to wonder why it was not more popular. So Cursed is basically a prequel to The Legend of King Arthur. Why did I doubt myself on that? It's the prequel to the King Arthur stories. So think of Knights of the Round Table, Sir Lancelot, Merlin's in there, those stories. But here's the plot twist. The protagonist in the show Cursed is a woman. So a gender flip, which I love. At first, I assumed that since this was a prequel, so this is a prequel to those stories that we've known for many years, I thought that maybe the 10 episodes on Netflix were like a complete story or like a complete series or whatever, but it turns out they are not. I actually did do some Googling, and Netflix did not renew this series. So there is only one series out there of it. Cursed is pretty polarizing. I Googled some reviews, looked up some reviews on it, what people had to say about it. It's pretty polarizing. There are lots of people that hate it and think it's terrible and has lots of critiques for it. And then there's people that really love it and have kind of this cult following of it. But I watched the first episode and I have some thoughts. So sit back and relax and watch this show with me, listen to me, critique it, make fun of it. I'll let you know if I think it's any good, if it's clean, if it's worth a continued watch. Just a warning, I do talk about the beginning of this episode all the way to the end. So if you don't want any spoilers and you want to just watch this yourself with your own opinion, then go ahead and click off. But if you're interested, stick around. Okay, it's a new day. My camera died on me, so we're starting on a new day. But anyways, back to Cursed. So Cursed opens on our protagonist. Her name is Nimue. It's actually been a while since I watched this, so I kind of forget exactly how it's pronounced, but I'm pretty sure her name was pronounced Nimue. I have it written down correctly. It's Nimue, but anyways, if I'm wrong, sorry, you can tell me in the comments if I'm wrong. One thing I did love about this show is it's kind of sprinkled through with a lot of really cute fantasy names like that. So I actually really like that name. It's cute. Right off the bat, we learn that Nimue is troubled. She's been hearing voices in the woods. The people of her village don't like her. And at first you're kind of not exactly sure what's going on. But you find out that girl's got some powers, some really scary powers. So the villagers are kind of scared of her. She's a little bit of an outcast, but they're mostly, I think, scared of her, and that's why. They don't like her, they're disgusted with her, and it's kind of one of those we don't like what we understand kind of things. Now here comes my first real critique of this show. It didn't bother me while I was watching it, but then after the fact, when I was sort of thinking about it, it started to bother me. But one thing you'll learn in this show is that there are magic people and there are non-magic people, which of course is pretty typical in any sort of fantasy storyline. Sometimes in this show, the magic people are portrayed as good and sometimes they're portrayed as bad. Eventually, you'll learn that Nimue's village is actually comprised of magic people. In fact, you find out that her own mother is this sort of like high priestess of this council kind of thing, and she's very magical and has lots of powers. So the people in her village, they know magic, they respect her mother, but Nimue is seen as cursed in her village. Get it? That's the name of the show. So I'm not sure it makes a ton of sense why her own people despise her so much. Maybe as the series goes on, we'll understand better, but as of right now, reflecting on it, that didn't really make a lot of sense to me. Within the first few minutes of the show, Nimue is pulled into some sort of magical ritual with her mother, the high priestess person. There are elders from the village there, and they're doing some sort of ritual around the eclipse. They talk about the hidden. So an eclipse happens, and the hidden choose Nimue to be the next summoner. Who are the hidden? What is a summoner? Absolutely no clue at this point. And spoiler, it doesn't come up for the whole rest of the episode. So I still don't know. But Nimue is not happy about it. She rejects it. And the elders are also not happy about this choice that the hidden have made. The only one who seems at all pleased about this little ritual and the way it went is Nimue's mother. Side note, another kind of annoying thing about this show is they have these really cute little fantasy names, like I mentioned earlier, but then the terms for anything that they're defining within this world are so bland and like unoriginal. You have the hidden, the summoner, the sky folk, the gray monk. That one's not so bad. I don't mind that one. And then the fae, just the fae. They're all simple yet like super vague at the same time. So in another typical fantasy trope, Nimue fully rejects being chosen in this way to be the summoner. She immediately heads home, packs up her stuff, and gets the heck out of Dodge. It's then that we're introduced to our first sidekick character. She's a friend of Nimue's, and her name is Pim. Again, another name that I actually think is really cute. And frankly, Pim is the only logical character in this entire show. She tries to talk Nimue out of running away, but Nimue is hearing none of it. So Nimue is determined to basically hike to this nearby ship port. And when Nimue does not listen to Pim decides, well, I might as well just like go along with her and walk with her. And maybe, I don't know if she's thinking she'll just like convince her along the walk. So these two characters head out into the woods together, and they're heading to this ship port village. Oh, but shock and awe, when they finally do get to this ship port village, the ship already left. It left yesterday. So Nimue can't run away like she had hoped to. So since Nimue is now stuck at this port village, we're just gonna set her aside and leave her there for now, and we're gonna kind of go to a different point of view. Remember how I said that in this world there are magic people and there are non-magic people? Well, at this point, we're introduced to our antagonist, who is a non-magic person. So you can kind of see the general setup is that magic people good, non-magic people bad, which again is why I'm like, why is Nimue considered cursed? So they are called, there's a main antagonist, and there's sort of like an antagonist group, and they're called the Red Paladins. And they're kind of the antithesis to Nimue's gentle, magical village people. The Red Paladins are named for their red coats. They're sort of this radical religious group. They basically look like monks. They're on some sort of crusade to like weed out anyone they believe is filled with demons, which, as you guessed it, is Nimue's people. So they're very much against the gentle magic people. We learn at the very, very beginning of the episode that the Red Paladins are like burning down villages, and they're sort of marching across the land and burning down any of these magic people villages that they come across. They have not yet gotten to Nimue's village, but they are on their way. No one really seems to be doing anything about that, so that's sort of, I guess, a tension builder there, is you know these bad guys are coming, but no one's really doing anything about it. especially not the king. So the king in this story, who at this point really doesn't seem all that important, he's almost kind of just like a random character. He is not very well liked by Nimwe's people, or really anyone in the kingdom. He's just kind of allowing the Red Paladin guys to do whatever they want and commit genocide. There's also a drought going on at the time, and the king is basically doing nothing about it. The only really reason I think that we're introduced to the king is so that we can be introduced to Merlin. And this is sort of the first real cross section of where the King Arthur world kind of does mesh with this prequel world. Merlin is basically the king's magician. It is stated that Merlin is from the same magic people that Nimue is from. So Nimue and Merlin are from the same sort of people group. But he's basically portrayed as this drunk, directionless, out of work kind of magician. Obviously has a lot of powers, they make that obvious, but the king is pretty disappointed in him. It honestly kind of comes across just sort of like depressed. At this point, Merlin is we don't really know if Merlin is going to be a good guy or a bad guy at this point. And I think that's intentional. He doesn't really seem to be helping the magic people, but he's also like really not on the side of the Red Paladin, so it's sort of vague. Let's put a pin in Merlin, and we're gonna get back to Nimue and see what she's doing. So if you remember, we left her stuck at that port village town. So Nimue and Pim basically decide to turn this into a little girls' trip. Since Nimue can't keep running away, they might as well have a little fun. They go shopping, they giggle until they are enraptured by this man in sort of the center of this port village who's singing. They end up exchanging a few words. The handsome guy introduces himself as Arthur. So ta-da, another blend here. But of course, Arthur is basically a nobody at this point. He is not a king, he's nothing. He is, however, I shouldn't say he's nothing. He is a knight, and he's apparently a pretty good musician too. So they end up basically spending the day together, Nimue, Pim, and Arthur. He ends up accompanying Pim and Nimue back to their village that they came from. For some reason, even though it seemed to take Nimue and Pim 5 minutes to go from their village to this shipport town, it seems to take like days for them to get back. In fact, it's so long that they have to stop and actually make camp. Even though when they went there, they didn't. It was like the sun didn't even move. They just walked there. And now on the way back, it's taking so long, and I guess it's getting so late that they have to stop and make camp. Of course, it essentially becomes we only have one room open for 2 people, 1 bed for 2 people situations. It's essentially that. They're sort of forced into, setting up camp with this really handsome, cute guy. Nothing really happens. I think it's just kind of supposed to be, part of the romance storyline of this. There's definitely some chemistry between Nimue and Arthur. So in the morning they get up, and by the time they get back to Nimue and Pim's village, the village is now under attack by the Red Paladin guy. So pandemonium breaks loose, and I'm gonna be honest with you, at this point in the episode, there were so many little storylines and characters that I kind of lost my way. I sort of zoned out there for a while. But Nimue ends up getting away. Even though they're under attack, she ends up getting away. Pim and Nimue's mother, however, are not so lucky. After Nimue gets away from her village that's under attack, her and Merlin end up having like a weird dream connection. So I know that seems like kind of random, but there was a point in the episode where Merlin, for whatever reason, does end up finding some like direction in his life. And he does actually start like doing something in the episode and doing something with his life. And he, for whatever reason, not really clear why he does this, but he ends up casting some kind of a spell on Nimue that gives her the Sword of Power. Again, such a generic name. What's the Sword of Power? Especially for something that's supposed to be so powerful, but whatever. So the episode ends with Nimue being chosen by this sword, even though I don't know if she was really chosen because it was like Merlin kind of did it. So I don't know. I guess he chose her. I don't know. There's no clue what's going on, and I kind of don't either, to be honest with you. But we as the watcher are meant to presume that Nimue and this special sword will be just the thing to defeat the Red Paladin guys. So I did at least, you do at least gather that she needs this important weapon in order to defeat this great enemy. It's kind of where the episode ends. So it definitely leaves on a cliffhanger that you're supposed, you're meant to keep watching. So what are my overall thoughts on episode 1 of Cursed? Let's discuss how clean the episode is. There was basically zero sexual content. However, they're definitely setting things up that I think something will happen between Nimue and Arthur, but we'll have to see. It's pretty violent, I would say. Maybe not gory, but pretty violent. We definitely see like the village being burned down, people running away and screaming. There's even actually shots of people being crucified, and burned. And not like super duper graphic, but definitely pretty violent, I would say. One scene in particular, when Merlin is working on this whole sword spell that he does, some stuff goes down for sure. Namely, he finds this creepy baby with multiple faces that he needs in order to cast this spell. We also see some super quick shots of like Merlin's like half naked body. He's like kind of in the fetal position. You kind of get a shot of his body from the side and he's like obviously naked. So those two scenes, I mean, they're really quick, but I don't know, kind of gross, I guess. Finally, the thing that probably bothered me the most about this show is that the antagonist, so the red coat guys, the Red Paladins, are clearly portrayed, they're obviously meant to be like Christians, okay? They're very religious and they come across as Christian. Not that I think that everyone that calls themselves a Christian is good, because that's certainly not true, but it's portrayed as if all magic people are good and all religious people are bad. That's definitely the message that comes across in the episode. I'm not super hung up on this, but I felt that message was pretty clearly portrayed. All that said, I did enjoy watching the episode. It was pretty entertaining, very beautifully shot. I mean, it's a beautiful show. I didn't find it super original, but it did quench that thirst for something magical and fantastical. Will I watch the next episode? I think I might. I probably will. I'll see what you guys say in the comments. If you guys want me to watch the next episode, I will. It was left on a good enough cliffhanger that I'm interested in finding out what happens next. Feels a little predictable to me right now, but that's okay. Sometimes predictable is fine. Let me know in the comments if you've seen this show. Do you agree with my take on it? Am I totally off, especially on the whole, the Red Paladins being Christians? I'm curious if you guys picked up on that too. What did I get wrong, or what did I misunderstand? Also, let me know if you think I should watch the next episode or if I should just move on to something else. And as always, if you're looking for a good, clean fantasy read, I have written several clean fantasy books. So if you're new to my Camilla Krim series, down below in the description is a link to get the first book in the series for free. So please go check that out. And until next time, thanks for watching this show with me. Bye. Oh, also make sure you subscribe.